You ever have one of those mornings that just feels off, but you can't quite put your finger on why? That was me, standing at the kitchen window, hands wrapped tight around my coffee mug, watching the sunrise set the trees ablaze with orange and gold reel postcard stuff, you know? And there was my little boy Jake, 5 years old, standing at the end of the driveway, nearly swallowed by his backpack, those beat-up sneakers of his scuffing the pavement as he rocked back and forth, waiting on the bus. He looked so proud, zipping his own jacket, even if he had to wrestle with it 3 times to get it right. But that morning, something was different. The bus came rumbling down the street's squeaky brakes, doors hissing open in suddenly. Jake just stiffened up, shoulders scrunched, fingers digging into his backpack straps like he was about to be swept away by a hurricane. I mean, this is the same kid who once tried to climb the slide backwards at the park, totally fearlesser. So I thought. But in that moment, I saw him flinch. Not a little twitch, either, but like he'd just been struck. And then just like that, they got on the bus and vanished behind those foggy windows, and I stood there clutching cold coffee, heart racing, thinking, what just happened? At first, I tried to write it off. Maybe he was just nervous, or maybe the bus was louder than usual, you know? But the way he tensed up kept replaying in my mind all day. That afternoon, when Jake got home, I knelt down, pulled him in for a hug, and felt him go stiff as a board. This is the kid who used to melt into my arms, his little hands wrapped around my neck, never wanting to let go. Now, he stood like a statue, hands at his sides, eyes somewhere else. "You okay, honey?" I asked. He nodded, but couldn't meet my eyes. "Yeah," he said, but the word was just a breath barely there. That night, after I tucked him in, I stood in the hallway, listening to him breathe, trying to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe he was just cold. Maybe he was reading into things, because that's what moms do, right? But deep down, I knew, you always know. So next morning, I washed him again. Stood at the window, pretending to wipe the counter, but really, I was just tracking Jake as he waited at the end of the driveway. And sure enough, the moment the bus rounded the corner, there was the hunch, the white-knuckled grip on his backpack, the tiny step back before he climbed on board. My stomach just dropped. Then, the next day, I noticed something new: his fingernails chewed right down, red and raw. He hadn't done that since he was 3. That night, I woke up to the sound of crying quiet, broken. Rushed to his room and found him standing next to his bed, pajamas wet, face crumpled with shame. "I'm sorry, Mommy," he whispered, voice trembling. I held him, changed his sheets, told him it was okay. But I barely slept a wink after that, just staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence. The following morning, I tried to keep things light, made him his favorite pancakes with blueberry, smiley faces. "Hey, Jakey," I said, keeping it casual, "do you like riding the school bus?" He froze, fork hovering, staring at his plate like it might swallow him whole. "It's loud," he finally muttered. I waited, but he clammed up. I reached out to smooth his hair, flinched. Not much, but enough. My heart just broke a little more. I wanted to press him for answers, but you could see his lower lip start to quiver, so I just kissed his forehead and let it before now. That afternoon, my phone rang. It was Jake's teacher, Miss Alvarez, checking in. "He's been really quiet lately," she said, her voice gentle but clearly worried. She told me he used to be the first to share at show and tell, always going on about dinosaurs or some bug he'd found. Now he just shakes his head, doesn't raise his hand. "Has anyone been bothering him?" I asked. "Not that I've seen, but I'll keep an eye out," she said. I thanked her and hung up, hands shaking. This wasn't a phase, this was a pattern, and I wasn't about to let it slide. That next morning, I made a decision. "Jakey," I said as I helped him put on his shoes, "Mommy's going to work a little late today, okay?" He just nodded, eyes glued to the floor, not even curious why. My hands shook as I packed his lunch. I kissed him goodbye at the bus stop, watched him climb on board, waved then. The moment the bus pulled away, I jumped in my car and tailed that yellow beast down the street, heart pounding like crazy. I kept telling myself I was probably overreacting, that maybe it was nothing. But then at the next stop, I saw it with my own eyes. Through the windshield, I spotted Jake, pressed up against the window, trying to disappear. There was this bigger kid, maybe 8 or 9, leaning over him, saying something I couldn't hear. Suddenly, the bigger boy grabbed Jake's arm, twisted at Jake's face, just crumpled, but he didn't make sound. Didn't cry out, didn't call for help. Just sat there and took it while the driver kept on going. At the next stop, the big kid shoved Jake down the aisle and me. Boy stumbled, caught himself, hurried off the bus like he couldn't get away fast enough. I just sat there, fists clenched around the steering wheel, so angry my vision blurred. That wasn't just kids being kids. That was my son getting hurt day after day, and nobody seeing it but me. I wasn't about to let it go. I marched straight into the school no appointment. No signing, and just walked right into the principal's office, shoes clicking on the tile, adrenaline making my words come out in a rush. My son is being hurt on that bus every single day, I said, voice shaking but loud. I told Principal Mitchell everything, how I'd follow the bus, seen Jake's arm twisted, the way he flinched, the bedwetting, the silence. Something is happening, and I need you to help me. To her credit, she didn't waste time. 2 hours later, I was sitting in a small room with the principal and vice principal, watching grainy bus footage on a laptop. There was clear as day a third grader named Derek pinching Jake's arm, yanking his backpack, laughing as Jake tried to get it back. Worst of all, Derek leaning in, whispering something that turned Jake's face pale. My stomach twisted. What's he saying? I asked. We'll have to ask Jake, Principal Mitchell replied. But first, we'll call Derek's parents in. When Derek's parents arrived, they were furious. This is ridiculous. Kids tease each other. It's normal, his dad huffed. I balled my hands into fists. This isn't teasing. This is bullying. Your son is hurting mine. Derek's mom scoffed. How do we know your kid isn't exaggerating? Boys play rough. But the principal held up a hand. We have video evidence, she said, calm but firm. Derek has been physically and emotionally harassing Jake. That's not playing rough hats, unacceptable. Silence. Derek just stared at the floor. In the end, the school suspended Derek from the bus for 2 weeks, made him apologize to Jake, sent him to counseling. It didn't feel like enough, but it was a start. That night, I sat on Jake's bed, stroked his hair. Why didn't you tell me about Derek? I whispered. His lower lip trembled, and he curled up so small I barely recognized him. He said he'd hurt you if I told. That shattered me. I pulled him close, felt his little heart pounding against mine. No one will ever hurt you again, I promised, and no one will hurt me either. I promise. He clung to me like he thought I might vanish. The school didn't mess around next day. Every student got a note about a new buddy system. Older kids were separated from the younger ones on the bus to keep everybody safe. Jake was paired with Mia, a kind 4th grader who showed him how to make origami frogs every morning. Turns out, Derek's suspension got extended after more kids spoke up. His parents weren't so defensive now, just stone-faced, as they discussed moving him to another school. Part of me almost felt sorry for them. Almost. But then I remembered Jake's little voice. He said he'd hurt you. Things at home changed slowly. Jake's therapist taught him breathing exercises, gave him words to use if someone bothered him. We still had rough nights, bad dreams, chewed fingernails, but the bedwetting stopped, and the nightmares started to fade. About 6 weeks later, on a crisp Tuesday, I stood at the bus stop holding Jake's hand. The familiar rumble of the yellow bus filled the air. Jake's fingers tensed, just for a second. Then he took a deep breath, like his therapist had taught him. You got this, buddy, I whispered. He squared his shoulders. When the doors hissed open, he didn't flinch, looked back at me with this big, gap-toothed grin, gave me a hug, and bounded up the steps. Through the window, I saw him high-five Mia before settling into his seat. As the bus pulled away, Jake pressed his palm against the glass, waving like crazy until I couldn't see him anymore. And I swear, right then, that tight knot in my chest finally loosened. You know, maybe we never stop worrying, but sometimes you get to see your kid win back a little piece of his courage. So let me ask you, where do you draw the line between kids being kids and bullying? What would you do if it was your child? Share your thoughts below, because real change starts when we start talking.